tigers to survive. That is the only habitat where the tigers live with the pride.
Hello and welcome to The Wire. I'm Athira Pericheri. Sariska Tiger Reserve has been in the news a lot lately. On Monday, on August 4th, around 50 people gathered in Jantar Mantar in New Delhi. And they held up several banners. One said Save Sariska, another said Together for Tigers, another said No Mining in Sariska. And yet again, before that, on July 29th, which was International Tiger Day, another group of citizens had gathered in RA Forest in Mumbai, raising the same concerns.
When we say tiger, which is not only a national animal, but it is our national pride. So saving tiger is saving our national pride. So I request one and all to come ahead, save Sariska from illegal mining, which is going to take place over there. Speak out for our national tigers.
And as of August 6th, at least 5,000 letters have gone through 2 online petition sites to officials across both the state and the union governments, the state of Rajasthan. So this includes the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, the National Tiger Conservation Authority, the Chief Justice of India, and the Union Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav, among others. And then on August 6th, the same day, the Supreme Court also talked about the issue. The Supreme Court came down very hard on 2 expert panels, the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife and the National Tiger Conservation Authority, for attempting to redraw the borders of Sariska Tiger Reserve in a matter of a few days. But what's really happening? Let me break it down for you. But first, let's talk about Sariska Tiger Reserve and tiger reserves in general. Sariska Tiger Reserve is in northeastern Rajasthan, and it's just a 4-hour drive from New Delhi. It's home to predominantly stunning dry deciduous forests and, of course, tigers, India's national animal. Now, apart from tigers, Sariska is also home to a lot of other protected species as well, including the caracal, which is a wild cat, and the striped hyena. Both of these come in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act and enjoy the same level of protection as the tiger. Now let's talk about tiger reserves. Tiger reserves are demarcated into 2 main zones. One is the core zone, also called the critical tiger habitat. The other is the buffer zone or the peripheral area. Now, critical tiger habitats or the core zones are primarily envisaged as very inviolate spaces where no human activity is usually permitted. And this area is just set aside for tiger conservation. Now, just outside this core area, we have the buffer area, the peripheral area. And buffer areas are not as inviolate as core zones are. And here is where a lot of human activities are permitted, given permissions are sought and so on. These include ecotourism activities, taking up projects to, conduct conservation activities such as rainwater harvesting pits and so on. Now, what happened is that on June 26th, the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife, so the National Board of Wildlife is a body under the Union Environment Ministry, and they review proposals and reject or accept these proposals from state governments to conduct construction or developmental activities within wildlife habitats. Now, these wildlife habitats can be national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, tiger corridors, and also the eco-sensitive zones right outside these areas. So on June 26th, the Standing Committee of this board approved a proposal sent by the Rajasthan state government to redraw the borders of Sariska Tiger Reserve. By this, they meant that they wanted to decrease the buffer area of the Tiger Reserve by 43 square kilometers, but also increase the critical tiger habitat by 42 square kilometers. At least that's what the minutes of the meeting of the Standing Committee for the National Board for Wildlife said. Activists have pointed out that that's not the entire picture. There is also a possibility of denotifying 23 sites within the existing critical tiger habitat or the core zone. And that could be a problem. Now, what are the main concerns? So, there are four main reasons why conservationists and activists have raised concerns about this approval given by the National Board for Wildlife. And first is the issue that buffer zones are important areas. So when we're talking about a decrease in 43 square kilometers, it may not sound like much, but that's essentially around 143 times the size of Nehru Park in New Delhi. So while that area would sustain wildlife, buffer zones also help wildlife move from the core zones and into other forest fragments. And considering how fragmented our forests are, buffer zones are extremely important for this animal movement, especially for something like the tiger, which is known to travel across wide distances and have home ranges of at least 94 square kilometers. So we also need to look at Sariska Tiger Reserve specifically when it comes to both buffer area and core zones, because Sariska has a very important place in the history of tiger conservation in India. In the early 2000s, the Tiger Reserve had lost all its tigers to poaching. By 2004, none of them survived in the park anymore. They went locally extinct. And when word of this got out, the Indian government had to do something drastic, and they did it. They introduced tigers from other parks, including Ranthambore, also in Rajasthan, into Sariska Tiger Reserve. And now the tigers are really doing very well. The population of tigers in Sariska, by one estimate, is nearly 50 as of June this year. So considering that this is a tiger reserve that has actually done very well when it comes to tiger recovery and conservation, what will meddling with its boundaries do? That's a very valid question that Greens have asked about this. Now, the second concern is that denotifying these 23 sites in the critical tiger habitat in Sariska Tiger Reserve will actually pave the way for 50 marble and dolomite mines that had been shut down in 2024 on orders of the Supreme Court. And these could now restart their operations because they do not anymore fall in the 1 kilometer radius that mining is not allowed in. And mining is a very disturbing human activity, especially in a place like a tiger reserve that is doing so well. Incidentally, Alwar, where all this denotification of Sariska's boundaries is happening, Alwar district, is also Bhupender Yadav's constituency, our Union Environment Minister's constituency, where he won by a very large margin in the Lok Sabha 2024 elections. Now, the third concern that activists have raised is that this approval by the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife happened in a matter of days. For instance, the approval by the Rajasthan State Wildlife Board happened on June 23rd. Then on June 25th, the National Tiger Conservation Authority approved this redrawing of the borders. And on June 26th, a day later, the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife approved it. And what was the hurry is what people are asking. Why was this done in such a hurry? And that again is a very valid question. Now, the fourth reason that lawyers have pointed out is that there is no legal rationale to this redrawing of Sariska's boundaries. That's because one of the arguments that the Rajasthan state government has used is that a committee under the Indian government that reports directly to the Supreme Court had noted that the area of the wildlife sanctuary, Sariska Wildlife Sanctuary, is lesser than the critical tiger habitat area. And this was a concern, they said, and therefore these boundaries had to be redrawn. But then there is no legal onus to have wildlife sanctuaries or critical tiger habitats at a particular area, or them having to be larger or smaller than one of these. So that rationale is completely out of the window. So there is irrationality in this rationalization process, is what environmental lawyer Ritvik Datta wrote in his commentary for a news house very recently. Another legal issue is that two members of the State Board for Wildlife actually did express dissent to denotifying the 23 sites in the critical tiger habitat area. However, this was not recorded in the minutes of the meeting. And this was also not acknowledged in the meeting of the National Board for Wildlife, and they still went ahead with their approval, completely going against the legal systems in place. So, what is the latest? What's happening? The Supreme Court on August 6th also spoke about Sariska Tiger Reserve, and the bench came down very heavily on both the National Tiger Conservation Authority and the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife. A bench consisting also of Chief Justice B.R. Gawai. They remarked that they thought that these expert panels knew what they were doing and they were experts. However, these panels have acted like they are a post office, was what the bench remarked. They said that the hurry in which the approvals were given by the State Board for Wildlife, the NTCA, and the National Board for Wildlife, in a matter of 48 hours, is basically a mockery of the system. And it cannot be done this way. The boundaries of a tiger reserve cannot be redrawn this way, because tigers, a very important part of our ecosystem, are involved in the matter. The court also noted that before taking such a decision to approve the redrawing of Sariska's boundaries, invitations had to be given for comments and objections, if any, but this was not done. And what they've essentially done is sent back the proposal and asked the National Board for Wildlife and the NTCA, the National Tiger Conservation Authority, to take another look at this approval and give their decision later. The court has also asked the Rajasthan state government to prepare a status report, and this will now be heard on August 12th. And what will the state government say and what will they do? Keep following us on The Wire as we follow this for you.
द वायर के और वीडियोस देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक करें। स्वतंत्र पत्रकारिता की आर्थिक मदद करने के लिए डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए लिंक पर जाएं और अपनी राशि चुनें।